goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising and marketing. We love advertising professionals. We love ad agencies. We've interviewed 200 plus ad agency professionals in the industry, and we're going to continue to do that. But we also want to highlight the stories and the successes of those who are strictly marketing, own one brand, run the marketing for a single brand. And today we have a Hall of Fame episode. Seriously, love this one. Lauren King is this week's guest. Lauren King is Director of Brand Marketing at Wolverine Boots and Apparel. And they got some great stuff. So that always helps when the product is amazing. But this episode, you're going to listen and hear how she takes us through her journey from internships at the Detroit Zoo, at WNBA team, working at a PR agency. So I resonate with that, to how she took a chance on a startup company and how it ended up being a huge success for her in her career. She spent 10 years at this startup and rose the ranks there. All this kind of like how she started in a 2008 recession really is synonymous to how we're starting out today with the post-pandemic world. So you're going to love this episode. You're going to want to connect with Lauren King. To do that, you should always try LinkedIn first. But if you don't find success there with any of our guests on your own, if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts and you reach out to me, Gino Schellenberger, on LinkedIn, I will do my best to personally connect you with either Lauren or any of our past guests. Can't guarantee that it'll actually work, but I'll work for you. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Brand Side Podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right. Lauren King, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Brand Side Podcast. How the heck are you doing today?
I am doing great, Gino. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. This is going to be, we were just talking before. I know this is going to be a great episode. I'm looking through the catalog. I need a new pair of boots. I think Wolverine might be the thing that I settle on here. So beautiful stuff that you guys got, and pumped.
Awesome. Yeah, I have to admit I'm biased to our product, but it is truly amazing product for anybody working in the skilled trades industry, anybody wanting just a really high quality leather boot. We have something for everyone.
I think it'll help my personal brand. I like to be like hardworking, but also kind of stylish.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that our 1,000-mile boot has been around since like the mid 1900s. And one of my favorite actors, The Rock, which I think some people might laugh at. I think he's an amazing.
Oh, he's the best.
Being. He's amazing.
He's going to be the president one day.
I agree. But, we've had everybody from The Rock to Ryan Reynolds to Chris Hemsworth. We got a ton of people who
are rocking it.
Who are rocking it. Yeah. Who have rocked it over the years and who love the product. So that's awesome.
I love it. Well, it's always great to talk with somebody on the marketing side. We've only done a couple of these, so not very good at these interviews. I know agency world very well, but it's more of an exploration on what is it like on the other side, the brand side. And you're the perfect person to talk to, being a brand marketing lead. Your official title is Director of Brand Marketing at Wolverine Boots and Apparel. Is that correct, or did I botch it?
Nope, that is correct.
So that's like the perfect title for this podcast. So can you explain to me what a director of brand marketing does in general, and then what it's like at Wolverine?
Yeah, absolutely. So brand marketing, I like to think that we kind of have our eyes and ears on everything. Brand marketing is critical. We're a critical piece to the strategy of the brand, to the sales team, to creative, to how we're showing up in multiple channels. We obviously work closely with our digital partners, our retail partners, and all of that. But brand marketing is in charge of truly knowing the industry that we're playing in, what's happening in the market, what's happening with our target consumer, And then what are the macro trends just happening in society that are impacting how consumers buy, what they're buying? And, on top of all of that, what do people want out of a product? It's not as black and white as it was back in the day. There's so much competition out there that, even when we come up with stories that we're going to tell from the brand side and what we're going to talk about to our consumers, we're not just competing against the competitors in our industry in footwear, in the work boot category. We're competing with everything that consumers are seeing on a day-to-day basis on their Instagram feed, on TikTok, what's hitting their email inboxes. So I would say our biggest job is to find a space in the consumer's heart and mind for our brand to live that ultimately helps them convert to a purchase of our product.
Ooh, that sounds hard.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of different things. I think, some people joke about like, oh, that's just marketing math. And marketers aren't necessarily good at math. You have to be good at math. You have to be good at analyzing data, analyzing, where are consumers, what prices are consumers buying things at?
Big time.
It's a huge swing for us when we're putting boots into the market. If we have a new product launching at $160, but 90% of the work boot industry, consumers are purchasing at $130. We could totally miss opportunities. So it's a lot of things on the marketing side that I think from an outside perspective, people just think that we develop fun creative, which we do, but
Right.
there's a lot of strategy and a lot of insight that go into any product or story that we launch.
Love it. And we can definitely dive into that. But I want to know, I guess, what's your approach? What's the strategy at Wolverine? How are you guys standing out? Because attention is fleeting. We know that. You said you're competing against every brand potentially in theory. So what are some things that you guys have done or planning on doing? I saw you guys did a recent collaboration that looks amazing as of 30 minutes ago. You posted on your LinkedIn. So maybe you can talk about that. But yeah, like what's the game plan? How are we gonna sell more Wolverine boots, get in top of mind and consumers?
Yeah. Yeah. At Wolverine Boots, we are very fortunate to have a very rich history. The brand has been around for 140 years. We have continued to be the number one market share holder in the work boot category. So with that, we have a big awareness. We have a huge consumer base, but there's constantly new players coming in. So we're not as much of a challenger brand or a brand that's trying to break into an industry because we have an established one. But that's a whole different responsibility and a whole different way that we have to keep our competitive edge to make sure we maintain that number one spot. So to your point, how do we do that? A lot of what we do is making sure that our product is amazing. One of the things we talk about at Wolverine Worldwide is the three key things that we need to do to be competitive. It's build amazing products, tell awesome stories, and drive the business. So where marketing comes in is really the collision point of all three of those things. So building awesome products, it has to meet the demands of our consumer. Our consumer, we know that they want comfort. They want performance. They want to also look good on the job site. So we have that pretty nailed down. I'm not going to lie. Wolverine Worldwide, Wolverine Boots,
Ooh.
we make really good product.
What's the target breakdown? And every company has like these names for these audiences, right? Like heavy user, urban, metro, dad.
Yep. Yes. So
what are some of those key players? Like, do you have some of those top of mind, or do you not reveal those? Or
no, absolutely. I mean, I won't reveal the secret sauce of our target consumer. But yes, I think to your point, consumer segmentation work is incredibly important. It's an incredibly important piece of the brand marketing side is knowing who you're talking to.
Yeah.
I think it's a very basic phrase, but I think everyone's heard, you can't be everything to everyone.
Right.
And that's critically important when it comes to marketing. I know on your side, even talking about advertising, same thing. Like you can't stand for everything. So what do you stand for? And that goes back to analyzing the market and analyzing the consumer. And, for us, what we identified, we just did a consumer segmentation study a couple of years ago. And, typically they say you should refresh a consumer segmentation study every 5 or so years.
Ooh,
Just
good to know.
as the consumer changes, as society changes, as industries change, consumer mindset, consumer sentiment. I mean, think about how much consumer sentiment and purchasing decisions changed during COVID. So there's still that, kind of like a hangover of that and how that's impacting consumers. But on that note, what we identified in our segmentation was a few different things that different work buyers need. And, some work buyers, all they want is maybe a certain brand on their foot. They're more obsessed with the style and
Mhm.
how it showcases their personal identity and the personal image. Others are like, I want to look good, but the number one thing I need is anything that's going to help me perform at my best. I will spend more money to have the best new comfort technologies out there. And other ones, there's just different levels of what they're looking for in a boot. So it's hypercritical to find those people. And that's where our digital and paid media team, we work with Havas Media on
Hey.
for all of our paid media across the portfolio. But that's where, they come in to find those consumers for us. On the brand marketing side, we lead the segmentation and say, this is who we're talking to. This is who we need to target. Your job on the paid media side is then to go find those consumers for us. Make sure we're
Where they're at.
getting in front of them.
Where they're at, when they're at,
Yep.
where and when, what are they thinking? What are they doing at that time?
Yeah.
That's
And a lot of it
interesting stuff.
used to be just finding, what's their age, what's their standard demographic. And now it's trying to just get more into their minds. Like what, to your point, Gino, like what are they thinking? What makes them tick? What makes them buy?
Yeah. I think I'm impenetrable to marketing, but I'm not. I love this stuff.
It's
I
fun.
was like, nobody can target me.
See, what's funny is I know darn well what companies are doing and why I get targeted for things, and I'm still a sucker for it. And I kind of laugh and I'm like, yep, they found me. I like this. Good job. I'm going to buy this.
I'm telling you right now, it's TikTok for me. If there is somebody that's an advocate for a brand and they're like, you need to buy these, like this is the summer trend of clothing for men, and it's like a girl that's an influencer, I'm like, I'm going to buy that probably, or I'm going to look on Amazon and see what they have.
Yeah, it's the trust, and again, I think that's another, I can nerd out on this, but that's another thing that we look for. What is our target consumer? Who do they trust? Do they trust brands? Do they trust influencers on TikTok? Do they trust celebrities?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a whole other piece of our segmentation where we identify the consumer we're talking to and then talk to them more in those places.
I'm literally using TikTok as a search engine now. If I want to find out a recipe or what clothes or what the best work boot is, I'm going to go to TikTok first and see what the most liked video is.
There you go. It's brilliant. I mean, and again, that's just so many, this isn't anything novel. We've all been dealing with it for the last 20 years, but back when I first started my career, Twitter was just starting.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like the big new platform to discover and understand. And, it was a bunch of us interns that were clawing to show that we were most up to speed on this new platform of Twitter and who's tweeting, right? But I mean, every year there's something new. There's a new platform to engage in, a new platform to learn.
Let's talk about that. I think about how you broke into this world. I think that's a really good pivot point right there, because I want to understand, did you start off brand side? Where'd you go to school? What did you study? And how did you get that first job? What was that first job?
Yeah. So I am a Midwest native, Michigan born, love Michigan. I'm back here now. I went to school at Central Michigan University. I started my my post high school education knowing that I wanted to go into what I thought was journalism at the time. I've always loved writing. So I went to Central with the idea of going to the journalism program, ended up steering into PR. During my college years, I was able to land an internship at the Detroit Zoo, which was absolutely the most fun summer, just being a PR intern at the zoo, which essentially meant, picking up news crews to do their morning broadcasts in front of the giraffes and, putting on events for fundraisers. It was awesome.
PR is fun. PR is
yeah.
fun.
And it was a great experience. And then, at the same summer, I was able to intern with the Detroit Shock, which is the WNBA team that's no longer in Detroit. And that was the year that the Pistons went pretty far too. So I got to be there, kind of dabble in both nonprofit PR as well as sports.
You did it the same summer, or was it?
This was the same summer. One of them.
You're a little crazy.
It was, I actually had a third job that summer too, which will, maybe this is kind of proving my point that we talked about earlier, Gino, about not being afraid of the grind. But
right.
But yeah, at the time, like the Detroit Zoo internship, that wasn't paid. I don't know if they pay now, but it was an unpaid internship that I went to 3 days a week. But it was credit for my, I think there's still some of those out there. It was credit for my PR degree.
Yeah.
And then the one with the Detroit Shock and Pistons, that was 2 days a week and game nights. So I was able to do both, which gave me I think that really amplified my resume as I graduated and went on to then my post-college internship in Chicago at Weber Shandwick, where I was doing PR at Weber Shandwick.
Got it. Real quick note to all the listeners, if you need internship credit, I will sign it off for you, unpaid, for breaking and entering. You just create a couple social posts or want to research, whatever it is. I've been doing that and I sign it off. So I know some people struggle getting that internship for credit. So I like to put that out there.
That's anybody listening, take Gino up on that. Even if you have another internship, take him up on it. Get more, as many different things that you can talk about that you've done. That's all going to give you the next step.
Do you guys have an internship?
We do have an internship program over the summer at Wolverine Worldwide. We're based in Rockford, Michigan, just north of Grand Rapids. I don't know when that is launching, but
that'd be pretty soon then.
It's going to be pretty soon if it's not already up there. I haven't seen anything come through quite yet, but
it might be up now because if they're listening to this, it'll probably be like a month from today. So it might already be up. So
yeah,
where can they go to look at it?
WolverineWorldwide.com, I believe, is our corporate. Let me
Google Wolverine internship.
Yep. WolverineWorldwide.com, and just make your way over to the career site and you'll find it there.
Nice. Look at that. Effective. So you got at Weber Shandwick, and to me, PR for an individual company, if you're like doing it for the zoo or for that team, what was it called? The Detroit Shock?
Yep. Detroit Shock.
There's a big difference. I think that's super interesting. And then you get into the agency side of PR where you're working for a PR agency. Talk about that, like the differing views and the skill sets and what you learned like between those two. Different worlds.
They're totally different worlds. Yes. And, I was at, when I graduated college, it was 2008, going right into a recession, which was awesome. That was super fun. If you can't sense my sarcasm, it's incredibly sarcastic right now. But when I landed at Weber Shandwick for that internship, it's very different being on an agency side, like you're saying, Gino. I worked on 5 different accounts, and at an intern level, a lot of it was monitoring, tracking, purchasing things for press events that we had, compiling media mailers. I wouldn't trade that for the world because I met so many amazing people, learned so much, and built a huge network.
Good memory.
It was a great.
You have a good memory. You have a good memory. I'm saying I barely remember what I did at my PR agency life, and that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, but I think it's because that experience really sticks out in my mind. Like I learned so much about what I needed to go do. And I just moved to Chicago. The day after I graduated from Central Michigan, I moved down to Chicago without a job. And I knew I had to grind to make it. My parents weren't, they were like, we will get you to Chicago
Yeah.
and pay your first month's rent. You're on your own after that. So,
So you showed up without a job after you graduated.
yep, I got the internship. I kind of knew I might get the internship. So I was kind of banking on that. But then, that was 5 days a week. And again, going back to the grind culture, then I worked at a dental office of all places on the weekends because in Chicago, everything's open 7 days a week. Most dentist office in, suburban Grand Rapids are not. But I did that, and I did some administrative stuff for them. I did some marketing for them, ran their social while I was interning. But yeah, it's much different. You're juggling your balance at an agency is so unique because you're juggling 5 different clients. A lot of the time as an intern, you have maybe 5 different account supervisors or managers that you're working for these accounts. So you're understanding and learning how to effectively prioritize your time and what's most important to get done. How do you communicate with your other managers? Like, hey, if we have this big launch happening for one client, how do you make sure that you can inform your other one? So I think just it's working on agency side, I think is a great place for people to start in their careers, just because you really learn so many just skills of leadership and effectiveness to get things done.
Yeah. And I like that this advice I agree with 100%. I've been preaching this for years with this podcast, whether it's PR or events or traditional advertising like full service creative or whatever else you might be interested in. There's probably an agency out there that specializes in that. You could be you want to do website design full time one day. You should go to an agency that specializes in that because you're then getting all that experience like you just mentioned, and then you can pivot from there. So how long? So for you did Weber Shandwick, like that PR agency internship. Yep. Where did that take you full time? How did you break in full time, and where did you go?
Yep. So, like I said, that was 2009 was when I interned there. We were in a recession. They weren't hiring, which was fun. So we were all scrambling in the intern pit trying to find our next gig. I ended up stumbling across, many people will probably laugh at this, but many will know what I mean. But back then, there wasn't as many job platforms. LinkedIn wasn't as big. Like you finding a job, a very credible place to go look for a job was Craigslist, believe it or not.
Cool.
So we're all
still running today.
Yeah. So Craigslist and Indeed were the places you go. So we're all looking for jobs. I ended up finding a true startup. There were only 3 people working at the company at the time. And they were looking for a marketing person who could also be a race director. So I was big into running at the time. I still am. And I was like, well, this looks interesting. So I ended up applying for it and telling the other interns. They were like, what is that? That company looks like it's a scam. What's going on? Well, lo and behold, I was like one of the first 5 employees at this company at the time. When I started, I was there for almost 10 years and it blew up to be almost $100 million company. We were the largest running series in the country at the time. We launched a music festival. The amount of things I got to do when I was at this company was absolutely wild. The amount of people I met,
incredible,
both celebrities and, just really smart people. It was insane. We were on the
what celebrities did you meet?
I mean, working at a music festival, we were like the Coachella of the East Coast. If you've ever heard of Firefly Music Festival, they took a hiatus this past year, but we eventually got bought out by Golden Voice, who runs Coachella. And now the Firefly entity is owned by AEG, which is, if you don't know, AEG is a massive entity in the entertainment space. So yeah, I mean, going from doing PR at Weber Shandwick to being a race director and an event expert, organizing, running events with 20,000 plus people across the country multiple times a year. Then essentially we, the CEO of the company was like, we're going to be the best experiential agency in the entire industry. Right. So he's like, I think I can launch the best music festival in the world. So we did. It was insanely busy. The grind of being out there and getting a music festival off the ground is not for the faint of heart, but we did it. We had 30,000 people the first year, 50,000 the second year. We got up to 90,000 people one year,
Wow.
and had people like Foo Fighters, Paul McCartney, Jack Johnson, all these people headlining. So it's comical to think about when I took a risk on a weird Craigslist ad for a company that essentially was in Lincoln Park in a one room office to what it became. So kind of a wild ride that was. And I spent a lot of my time 10 years of my career there. That was the longest span. So
Wow.
yes.
How did you identify, like, when you were interviewing with them and like 3 people, scam allegations from your friends? I guess, how did you differentiate? Like, was it more so that you needed a job, this sounded great, and you just took a chance, or did you see something early on? Or is hindsight 2020? I'm curious, because were there any key indicators that you thought this was going to blow up?
Honestly, no, because once I went in for the interview and met the co-CEOs, there were 2 guys running the place. They were awesome, and they sold me right away. They're like, we're small now. We're on to something. You will grow here. And frankly, what ended up happening too is I took the job, and then Weber Shandwick actually opened roles. Like they were like, they posted positions. So 2 months.
Did they call you up?
So 2 months into this job, I ended up getting an offer to work full time at Weber Shandwick. So then I went to my boss at, the current company I was interning at still.
Yeah.
That, hey, I'm scraping by in Chicago. I need a full-time job with benefits. So if you can't give it to me, I gotta go back to Weber Shandwick.
Right.
And they ended up giving me even more than the agency did. So
wow.
So it ended up being a salary thing, and I was just truly passionate about it. I ended up following, I believed in what we were doing. We were still small. We were still scrappy. We were growing a company from the ground up. But I loved it. I think I'm just very entrepreneurial in nature, and that's what I got to do there too.
Who were these guys? Are they still running it?
So Red Frog Events was the name of the company. I'm saying was because they did end up sunsetting the organization maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
What does sunsetting mean?
Closing the company. I was trying to say it in a nicer way of things that ended up the entertainment, the experiential entertainment business kind of took a turn. They're doing as much. Music festivals are an insanely difficult business.
They did it. How many years of operation? Because you were there for 10 years, so they were probably like 15 years. That's a long time.
They started like 2007. And then went to probably 2019, 2018.
That's a great run. Are you kidding me? Doing what you love and all that success. And I just want to talk with them because
you should.
I want to learn about how I can grow breaking and entering.
Yeah, they're incredible. They are absolutely incredible what they were able to do. Yes, I can make a connection. They both either are CEOs or founders of other businesses now.
I'm sure they got the itch and they're just good now, but it's probably because of you and all of your help.
No, I was just happy to be along for the ride and help out where I was able. So
10 years there is incredible. When did you decide that it was your turn to make the jump? Because I believe, you got up to director of marketing communications at that company. So you were running the show there eventually. That's such a great story. I think this is already a Hall of Fame breaking and entering episode. And I just think that's so incredible. When did you decide it was time for to go brand side? Because I'm alluding to that. I see that in your LinkedIn.
Yep. So I think, going brand side, really when I was at Red Frog Events, like we didn't put on events for other people. We concepted and did our events from the ground up.
So you were already basically in brand side then?
100%. It was just much different because we were, it's not like we were a CPG company. We didn't have like our product was an event. So it was very unique, a unique take on brand side. But I'd been there for a long time. There was really nowhere else for me to go there. Honestly, I think in hindsight, I probably stayed there 3 or 4 years too long, just because I wasn't doing anything necessarily new. I wasn't challenging myself at that point. I was kind of doing the same job, but I loved the company. I loved the people. It was hard to leave. But my husband and I were making a move back to Grand Rapids from Chicago, where he's originally from. I was able to work remote there for a while, but then I was eyeing Wolverine Worldwide. I love running. I love the outdoors. And within that portfolio was the Merrell brand, #1 hiking brand in the world. Saucony, a huge player in the running industry. Wolverine Boots, where I'm at now, which is #1 market shareholder in work boots. So some incredible brands that were literally in my backyard. We ended up moving to Rockford. The office, the global headquarters is 4 minutes from my house.
Oh, nice.
So I looked at my husband. I was like, hey, like if I don't get in here, I don't know where I'm going to go, because this is where I really want to be. So this is an interesting piece again and I think some advice and I guess not necessarily a lesson, but when I left the company I was at director level. Arguably what I was doing could have been considered VP level based on the responsibilities, but different structures and whatnot lead to different titles. The opening I saw at Wolverine Worldwide was a specialist. That is the lowest level in marketing that you can be at in their structure.
Wow.
But there was a PR specialist role open at Merrell. So I went for it. Ended up getting the job, but the CMO at the time who interviewed me started dismissing me on the interview because he's like, "You're overqualified.
Right.
This isn't going to work for you." And I looked at him in the interview. I was like, "Listen, I want this job. I understand it's a title cut. I understand it's going to be a pay cut for me. I want to be here. I will show you. There is no task that's going to be too big or too small for me to handle." So luckily he listened, and I got promoted back to pretty much where I was at within 2 years of being there. So sometimes you just got to take that risk for what you really want and trust the process. Trust that you're going to work hard and you're going to show your worth, and you're going to get to where you should be.
Yeah. And you are transparent. And I think that was crucial, because he or she was dismissing you. And I love that you were straight up and honest, and it worked out, because then you started accelerating fast.
Yeah. And it worked out. I think for sometimes it won't work out. Right. But luckily, I mean, I was at the time in my life where, I could take a pay cut. I was married. We had, dual income family. So I was like, we'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I think, different times of people's lives allow for that. And sometimes it doesn't. Right. But I was in the right spot where I could do that.
Right. Yeah. You have to audit where you're at. It's so important. Like for me right now, I know that I can work full time at an agency. I could do the podcast. I'm willing to do a master's program and teach at a university.
Wow. Because all of those things right now, Gino?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You are a rock star.
I don't do any of them very well. So
I highly doubt that.
I get by in all those areas, but it's because I don't have kids or a situation where I have a lot of responsibilities. So I'm putting all that time right now while I can. And I think there's different periods in everybody's lives where you might be busy, or you might have other conflicting external variables that you have to account for. So I think that this is a really good lesson, and it ended up being really beneficial for you. And then Merrell, you were with that brand, which is under the same holding company as Wolverine Global, correct? Wolverine Global is the holding company?
Yep. Wolverine Worldwide. Yep.
Wolverine Worldwide. And you did that for 3 years, and then you got to director of brand marketing for Wolverine from there?
Yep. So when I went to Merrell, I was primarily doing PR, communications, and purpose marketing. I loved every second of being there. As I started doing that, that's when I wanted to get more into the brand marketing side. I think there was something, even what I mentioned earlier about the reason I left my last company. I felt like I was plateauing, like I wasn't challenging myself. I wasn't learning any new skills. And that's sort of where I got to at Merrill and knew I was ready for a new challenge. So I ended up, I wasn't even seeking out this job at Wolverine, but I ended up making a good connection with another marketer over there, and there was some internal movement. And he called me and was like, "Hey, this is open. I think you'd be great for it." So I was like, I wasn't really thinking I'd go into that brand or necessarily this exact role, but I went for it. I got it, and I could not be happier with that move. And that peer at the time, he ended up becoming my boss like shortly thereafter, which was great. And we have a fantastic working relationship. One of the things I always tell people is, work with people you like, work with good people, be a good person. Remember that everyone you work with are human beings. And I'm very fortunate that that boss now is that person, and the team that I'm on are also all great people that just want to work hard and do a good job.
Lauren, I love this story. I think we've hit on so many important lessons. And the through line of all of this, I believe, is like the work ethic that you have, the passion, the transparency. I mean, there's so much. The intro is going to write itself when I record the intro later on. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing. And then how my other question, the last question here to wrap things up, is how can people connect with you and learn more about your story or about the internship? What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I think I definitely welcome all DMs, and it's hard breaking in. Your whole podcast is about breaking and entering. It can be hard, but definitely put yourselves out there. And the best place to reach me, I mean, if you go to my LinkedIn, Lauren Shield King, search Wolverine Boots, search Lauren King. I check my LinkedIn all the time, so it's just as good as an email to me. So please reach out.
Wonderful. Well, Lauren, thank you again. I appreciate it. I hope people reach out, but really, really great stuff. Really great lessons here.
Awesome. Thanks, Gino.
Amazing.